Welcome to the Mental Health Today show. In this episode, I'm talking about overcoming unhealthy family patterns. You are not your dad. You are not your mom. Welcome to the show. My name is John Cordray. I'm a national certified therapist. And I want to talk about something that many of you struggle with, and that is overcoming family patterns. And what I mean by that is the unhealthy patterns that get passed down from generation to generation. The unhealthy patterns that perhaps you have grown up with between your mom and your dad and how they reacted to one another and other people. Has anyone ever told you, or maybe you've thought of yourself, that I'm just like my mom, or you're just like your dad? Well, really what that meaning is, what people are trying to tell you is your unhealthy ways of handling situations, overreacting to certain things is negative, is unhealthy. And it's just people trying to tell you, hey, something's wrong here. So I want to address a couple of things. Number one, I want to address the shame and the guilt that is often associated with feeling like you're your parent. I'm just like my mom. Oh my gosh, I can't believe it. I'm just like my mom. Or perhaps it's, man, I am so much like my dad, but in a negative way. So if you have guilt, if you have shame, I want to address that. And then number two, I want to address kind of the opposite of that that's just who I am. I can't change. I don't want to change. Deal with it. And so there's two different sides to this. Those of you who are struggling and feel a lot of shame because you're afraid maybe you'll pass it on to your kids, the unhealthy reaction styles. And then there's the subset of there's nothing wrong with me, or if there is, I'm not going to do anything about it. You have to change. I'm not changing. It's just who I am. But one of the things that I wanted to address, because I see a lot of people in my office, a lot of couples come to my office, and I can't tell you how many times I see a family pattern, even when they don't see it. So they'll talk about how they're reacting to one another, they're not communicating well, or maybe one person is kind of the passive aggressive or someone else is the aggressor. And they don't see it. As they talk to me and shared with me their upbringing, it's identical. And when I bring it up to them and I show them and I say, you know what, the way you're reacting right now in your marriage is identical to how your mom and dad were. And they give me this look of shock and they say, oh my word, you're right. And so it's good to know and to understand that your way of overreacting is not healthy. So that's a great start. But don't take it to the extreme. Don't say, I am such a terrible person. Or don't feel like I'm never going to get better. Because you will. You just got to work on it. So identifying it is the first step. And admitting, you know what? I need to work through some of the stuff that I've worked and developed over the years growing up. I had to work through that. And so that's a good thing. Just don't fall into the shame and this regret and guilt, because that won't do anyone any good. And so when you are working through, when you're thinking through this, I want you to really understand that your parents, however they reacted or however they treated you, were still humans. They weren't perfect. And I'm sure you can think of some really good and things that you're grateful for your parents. I think many of you, and probably most of you, can think that way. So really focus on that. But then I want you to go through the whole process of forgiving your parents. You've got to forgive them. And maybe even write them a letter. Maybe even talk to them and say, you know, when I was a teenager, this happened and this really hurt me, and I want to talk about it. And so the whole idea, when you feel shame and guilt and resentment and bitterness, 9 times out of 10, it's because you have buried the emotion. You tried to avoid it, but it comes up. So you've got to address it face on. And then I want to talk about those of you who really say, well, that's just who I am. You just got to deal with it. I can't change. I don't want to change. If that's your attitude, your relationship's not going to grow. You're not going to grow. And if that's your attitude, chances are you're going to pass that unhealthy pattern on to your own kids. And I know you don't want that. And so you might need to work on, if that's you need to work on coming up with ideas of what you need to do to work on. And maybe you need to go to your spouse or go to your partner, go to your friend and ask them, okay, I'm not going to get mad, I promise, but will you let me know some of the things that I do or things that I say that offend you or hurt you in some way? So it's all about becoming less self-centered and less selfish and more wanting to help other people because of your actions. So don't blame your parents and say, they yell, they scream. I do, I can't help it, that's just who I am. But you need to get help. And so whether it's you're struggling with the shame, the self-doubt, the guilt, or if you're struggling with, I don't need to change, it's everybody else needs to change, I don't have to. Either one of those is unhealthy. And I would encourage you, if you struggle with thinking that you're just like your mom or you're just like your dad, that if you can't work through this on your own, go to a therapist. Find a therapist and tell them, this is how I was brought up, this is how I was raised, and now it's affecting me, it's affecting my relationships, it's affecting my marriage. And you go and you unpack and discover all those unhealthy patterns that were developed, that you've learned over the years. You have to go back in your past to work through it so you can have a better present, the better here and now. So I want to encourage you to do that. And I want you to remember, you are not your mom. You are not your dad. You can overcome this. You can work on your unhealthy patterns. You just need to admit it. You need to get help. You need to realize that you need to stop that unhealthy pattern. It stops with you. You can do it. You can do it. So work on that. I hope this is encouraging to you to realize that you don't have to continue these unhealthy patterns. You can do something about it. Hey, thank you so much for tuning in to the Mental Health Today show. I appreciate you. Thank you so much, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.